Fourth grade, we're going to work on our painted canvases today. You've already done your 2 coats to your background, and you'll get those back in a second. I have actually a 8 by 10, which is a little bit smaller than your 9 by 11 that you're used to drawing on. I have this sheet. I'm going to give you a drawing prompt. We're going to do it together. You might have already drawn this. See this first box here? This is what I found on the internet. You want to think about doing a light line and it taking up the whole canvas. So this is your canvas size. So there's that first step. Now if you look where the arch starts, it's a little ways back, and it's just, see how I'm doing it very lightly with my pencil, and my hand is up like this, like when we hold Miss Paula. This picture here, I've got a little bit of a lip for my fish, okay? Then I add the eyeball, which is kind of straight back from the top part of that upper part of his lip. Then I have another circle inside it. We're just drawing this to practice it, and this is if you want to do the big fish. Now, after that, see where the bottom of the lip is? Kind of go straight back from the bottom of the lip is. See where my pencil goes back there? And I'm going to have an arch. Same thing, where it looks like it's a C. Okay, a big C. That's my fin. And then you just have lines that are just going straight off the edge of your paper. Kind of have them where they're curving in. Okay, and you filled up your fish. And the last step that we have, you would do an arch right there. Do another circle inside. And this is if you want your fish to look like this. You can have any kind of patterns in here. So you would draw this to practice first. Make sure you have the canvas that is yours, and I have my sketch setting right here, and if I look at it, it's the same size as my canvas. You could actually set it on there and know that your line starts about right there. You can use the steps that we did before, or you can look off of yours. And this is a colored pencil, and it's white. That way if you make a mistake, it's not as harsh as the pencil. Okay, there's my big arch that I did. All right, and then the second step was I had where I came just a little ways back, curved it for the front of the fish. Okay, then I added his little lip. Okay, can you see it in the white? And then I go straight back from the top of the lip. I add my circle. Next step is another circle and another dot after that. Then straight back from the bottom, I have my arch of my other fin, okay? And the next step after that was my lines, and I curved it to make it look like the fish was curving, give it the illusion. Then I close this arch. I made this one smaller, that's okay. Then I have another circle in here. There we go. Now this would be ready to paint. Artists, we're going to be using acrylics, and they look like this. You're going to have maybe 8 or 10 colors per table. You will be sharing this with your shoulder buddy because I probably don't have enough for you to have your own. I want to show you the little bit that you actually put in there. There's the purple. I'm going to use this purple. We have brand new brushes. Just like when you color, I'm going to try to run through this kind of quick because I want you to be able to have time. When you color in my art room, you take and you go right on that line and you outline it. This whole area is going to be purple. Now his lip is going to be a different color. So I'm going right on that white line, and you will have to do 2 coats. This is why I would not suggest mixing colors. Number 1, you don't ever want to mix colors that everybody is sharing with, but number 2, you will not be able to recreate that. Now, if you need to turn this around so you're not putting your hand in wet paint, go ahead and do that. So I'm outlining right on top of that white line, holding my brush up. Remember we talked about tickling that paper so we're not scratching it, pulling Miss Paula towards you. Okay, the next thing, if you want to go off the edge, feel free to go ahead and do that. This is your canvas. If you don't want to go off the edge, don't go off the edge. It's up to you. Now I'm going to outline the circle. Probably should outline the circle first. See, I'm having to be very careful not to get the paint around there. Now the circle is going to be black. You decide what colors you want. Black is the last paint that you use because you don't want it to mix. Then I come in and I'm filling in. See, I already have that line, so I'm making sure that I'm not going to mess up my fish. I have to keep my hand up so I'm not dragging my hand through the wet paint. You also want to smooth out this paint. Look at my paintbrush. See how I just have it on the tip? Okay, get back more paint. And I'm going to have to, like I said, do 2 coats. So I will do the head, then I will move on to the body. You're going to need to plan what colors you want. So there's the second coat. I'm sorry, there's the first coat. You have to let it dry, otherwise all you're doing is scrubbing that paint. Now I would clean my brush and go to the next color. I've chosen the green and I've outlined each section and I've gone off the edge. I've started to add the orange. You have to be careful when you get in the lines that you make sure when you get up against it that it's not wet. Now remember, we do not add water to acrylics. We do use it to clean our brush. If you need to scratch the bottom with your brush, don't do this over your canvas. I want to make sure that you see how to clean your brush. I've outlined all the red. Now go on the edge. Be very careful that you don't get paint everywhere. This is if you want to do the edge. I personally like to do the wraparound of the edge. Now I'm filling in the red. Do you see how little bit of paint that I have? I'm taking my brush and I'm just lightly coming right up to that edge. You don't want it globby because that paint will never dry. Make sure your arm is not resting against wet paint. Going in one direction. And I'm filling this in, and this is just the first coat. Just painted the blue. Still first coat of everything. Then I'll go in with, it's easier to cover darker over lighter. I'm adding extra detail. See how I'm just using my brush and making the coral of the seaweed, and I'm pulling it towards me. If you need to practice on a piece of paper first, you can. Using the paint. And again, this is just my first coat. You will probably only get the first coat done on the first class. I'm adding the green and the red is still wet, so if you notice it's blending together, I'm okay with that. I'm not mixing colors on my tray. I am just mixing them on my canvas, so that is totally okay. But then before we go back and get more paint, we have to clean our brushes. There's one more thing I want to show you before I start the second coat. Be aware of your arms. I've got a little bit of paint on the edge, okay? But as an artist, remember, you can turn it into something else. So I will stop this and show you the second coat after I'm finished. Second coat of purple. Very important to make sure your paint is dry. If you look, I'm getting ready to do the orange. The orange is dry. If it's wet, you have to be very careful because it will smear, remember. Use smaller brushes if you need to. I'm going to go back in and do the detail of the orange. Something else about orange, yellow, and white, it might take 3 coats. I added some orange to my seaweed. For your second coat, you can always go in and use a bigger brush. This is a flat brush. And I'm holding this here so you can see it. You go right up to that edge. Make sure that you have a steady hand, and this will go quicker. But you want to make sure you don't mess up that line. And then spread that out. See how the flat brush? You could do this after you've outlined it or on the second coat. Another option you can do to go back in and add like a feathery look, you can just kind of like tap very lightly with Miss Paula, and you see the edge that I'm creating with my brush. That is totally up to you. Second coat of green, I want to show you where I'm fixing, where I had made a mistake with that red. Just covered right over it. The last thing that my fish needs is the little dot of white. That's all it takes, is a tiny little tip on the end of Miss Paula, and it is where the light reflects. And that's all you do, and then it's done. When these are done, if you want to, you don't have to. Like I said, this is the second coat. You can come back in and use a Sharpie. Look at how this is dry. So I'm adding some white little dots to my coral. You can always do that when your paint is dry. Add your little detail. What I was going to say is you can take a Sharpie if you want to, and I'm just using a tiny little bit of Sharpie, and add little details to your fish using black. Or you could come in and do something like this. If your fish is dry, you could put little dots on your little fish, but you have to have a very steady hand to do this. Fourth graders, this is the final stage. Your canvas should be completely dry, and you're going to get a brand new Sharpie. If it's not dry, then you can't do it, okay, because it'll ruin the Sharpie. Remember, we use Sharpies because we're fancy. You do not have to do this. However, if you do this, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. You just kind of keep your hand real steady, and I want you to see where I'm going right on that line with the Sharpie. Okay, I'm not having it be jagged. It's hard to do when I'm holding it. So I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna pause it and show you. You can also, artist, add your name on the bottom left. I would practice everything that I'm doing with the Sharpie first if you're nervous with it. Practice doing some patterns. Remember, artist, our rule with the Sharpie is take a line and make it darker, or take a marker, make it darker. Like I said, you have to use a Sharpie for this. Be very steady. You do not have to do this. I'm also going to add some patterns. See how I'm not drawing it on there, but I'm making it mimic, meaning it's the same on each of the green stripes going off the edge. I also outline the eye. I think it makes it really stand out. I'm not going to outline the algae. Something else that you can look at, artists, are these sheets that we have that I copied from the internet with patterns on them. There's my finished fish.